p.m. Good to see everyone joining. We'll go live at 5. In the meantime, is there any question? You can just write to us in the chat box. Welcome to one and all. Good to see all of you here today. Thank you all for joining. Sudeshna, hi, I think it's 5. And as we promised, we'll start the interaction. So good evening, parents, dear educators, and my young friends. Welcome to this huddle. Before we begin this interaction, before we start talking about the question which we are trying to answer, there are a few points which we like to look at so that we can ensure that we have a smooth transition of this interaction. Your audio has been muted to ensure we can listen to each other. If there are any questions, you can write to us right now in the chat box. Else you can message or WhatsApp it on this number given on the screen. We'll also like to hear from you if there are any questions related to education during our question and answer round at the end of the session. Sudeshna.
Hi. Hi, Prakhar.
Hi, good evening. We can go to the next slide.
Yes. Well, yes.
So the question which we are trying to answer today as an educator, as a parent, and often as a student, I think it's a very pertinent question and important for all of us. And it's not only us in India or in EI. I think this is a question which people across the globe are trying to answer. And the question is, how well is my child learning? Or if I would rather put it in some other way, is my child actually learning? This is what we'll try to do. But before we start, I will like to bring to your notice certain important points. Sudeshna, if we can go to the next one.
Yes,
Thank you so much. I think this depicts condition for all of us today.
absolutely. Yes.
And as an educator, though I'm very excited and keen to delve into questions related to learning, I must start with an important message which even WHO has been reiterating. I am sure all of you are with your family right now. All of you are together. All of you are safe and healthy. The important message before we talk about mental strength and mental abilities is the physical ability. And we think it's very important to be physically fit at EI. And that's why we are trying to bring this message across. Please ensure as a student, there is at least 1 hour of physical activity every day. And for an adult, ensure that you indulge into at least 30 minutes of physical activity, if not more. Thank you once again. Thank you for being here. Coming back to the question, which we all are trying to answer today, is my child actually learning? And to answer this, I have my friend and colleague, Miss Sudeshna Roy, along with me. Sudeshna has been educator for more than 20 years now and has been associated with EI for more than 6 years. She has been helping students, teachers, and parents in India and internationally. Welcome aboard, Sudeshna.
Thank you so much, Prakhar. And I must tell you, I'm delighted, absolutely delighted to be here today. You've been asking a very pertinent question about trying to understand how much my child is learning as a parent. So before I delve deeper or try to even find out an answer to that, can we ask our audience today here a few questions? I would like to ask them, start with a very basic question. So parents, have you been able to understand how well is your child learning in the past 5 months that they have been learning from home? We have launched a poll. You will find it on your screens. Feel free to answer on the poll. Wow, we can see responses coming in.
Yeah, I see a lot of people responding to this poll.
Yes.
Interestingly, I'm getting a lot of answers in chat box also. If you can all put it on the poll.
Right. Can we close the poll now?
Yes.
Right. Right. So, Prakhar, it's quite interesting to see that around 40 to 45% of our parents are worried about what kind of learning is happening. So they're not very sure of being able to understand how well their children are learning, especially in this COVID pandemic situation. Now, in order to understand this, let me just share this with you, that our concerns, our fears are very well corroborated now by research. An independent research tells us that when children go to school every year, in normal situations also, there is about a 30% loss during non-schooling periods, that is vacations and gaps that happen. There's a 30% learning loss, or they don't retain everything that is being taught in school, which is normal. Now, this special condition that we are in now is research predicts that we can have almost 50% of learning loss in this situation. And in certain cases, depending on subjects, grade level, age level, and even concepts in certain subjects, there can be even a full year's loss in understanding the concept. And it's really a scary situation. I think we really need to look at this, right?
This is pretty intriguing, Sudeshna. In fact, if you ask me, on the contrary, I see children, teachers, parents all kneeling down in front of the laptops, desktop, and often caged within their mobile phones. In fact, if
Right.
you ask me or my family, I personally, as an educator, have been enclosed in this box somewhere between this screen and this keyboard. And this
Right.
is when a research says, that the screen time for children has gone up to by 100%, especially 5 to 15 years. And
Yes.
still, you
That's
are
the
saying
schooling.
that
But
research says, yeah,
yeah, so Prakhar, there is that one side that you're talking about, and there is also this side that if in 1990s we were thinking of a child bunking class, we would see him moving out of school stealthily. But abhi kya ho raha hai? If you just switch off your audio, your video during a live class or a video Zoom session or something like that, your teacher does not know your engagement. आप कितने engaged हो एक session में, a teacher does not get to know what you're actually grasping well from the concept. What are you actually doing? So that is a very tricky and dicey situation. I'm sure you'll agree to this, right? So
absolutely.
I think you can understand this better if I get it from our mentor himself. In my 6 years with EI, I've learned a lot from a lot of people, but one of the specific mentors has been our founder, Mr. Sridhar Rajagopalan. I would like to let everyone hear him speak about what is important to learn and retain for students and why would some learning loss be very, very critical for kids, right? I'll just do small.
One thing that we have to understand is that learning is of different types. I said two
Video
slides
is not
ago
showing, so you'll
that
have to share the
there is a
screen.
dip learning or what we
Sorry?
call a learning loss.
The video is
I
not
want
there.
to
You'll have to
introduce you to
unshare and
what we
share the
call
video.
EI's tree
Okay,
of
sorry.
learning.
I'll
And I'll
just
explain
do it. Yeah.
why we
I
say
thought
that all
the video
learning
is
is not the
showing.
same. So some
Just
part
give
of
me a
learning
second.
is
Although I could hear Mr. Sridhar talking. Yeah.
Okay, but the video wasn't there, right?
one thing that we have to understand
Is the video
is
there
that
now?
learning is of different types.
You
I
see the
said
video?
two slides ago
No.
that there is a dip learning
Still
or
no?
what we call a learning loss. But I want to introduce you to what we call EI's tree of learning. And I'll just explain this why we say that all learning is not the same. So some part of learning is what we call core learning, like the trunk of a tree. So, the trunk of a tree is what supports the whole tree. It's what stays, it's what grows year after year. Even if the leaves fall off in winter, as long as the trunk is there, the tree can grow. That is core learning, and I'll explain what that is. Then there is supporting learning, which is like the branches of the tree. So these are not as critical as the core. If I cut a branch, it is fine, the tree will still survive and grow. And finally, I have the peripheral learning, which is like the leaves. So what is this core learning, supporting learning, and peripheral learning? There are some things that we learn which are absolutely core ideas. So if I learn basic concepts in class 4, in class 5, whether it's in language or maths, these are not things that the children can forget when they come to the next class. It is like a tree or like the foundation of a house on which you have to build in order to move to the next level. And that is what we call core learning. Supporting learning, like the branches of a tree, are those which are not as core as the main learning, but they are important to know. But after a year, if you forget it, it is okay. And then there are certain facts which are minor facts, which we call peripheral learning, which is, like you learn about Roman numerals in school, or you might learn a particular date. Now, these are not so important. One of the challenges in our school education is sometimes these three get mixed up. If I open the textbook, there is no mark that this is core learning and this is supporting learning and this is peripheral learning. Good teachers know this, but it is very important to realize what we have written here, which is that in any kind of a break or a pandemic or holidays, if children lose peripheral learning, there is no problem. In fact, peripheral learning is not meant to be remembered and learned and built on. They are peripheral things that you learn because it's part of what you're doing, but it is not so critical as you go ahead. However, we cannot ensure that children lose any core learning, because that is what can affect the child when the child moves to the next class.
So I'm sure, Prakhar, you heard him say what is important to learn
Insightful.
and what is important to retain.
But if you can, paraphrase it once again for all of us, because he talks about some very
Yeah,
interesting points
sure.
why
So,
things are not as important as others.
so he introduced us to what we call the EI's tree of learning. There are certain parts in our learning as students or as learners, which are core ideas to the concept, which are the integral part of the content and have to be learned and saved for later. They need to be serving as a foundation for further learning. That is what he's equating or the trunk of a tree. That is how important it is, like the trunk of a tree. Now, there are certain important ideas in those concepts, which are the basic ones, but are also important to know as procedures, right? So these are the supporting learning to help one retain the core learning. But there are certain other facts which we learn along with the core idea, along with the central idea, which might not be very useful for future learning. They're like the leaves, which even if they fall off, the core learning will be able to help us survive and bring in more knowledge or construct knowledge in future. That is what he is hinting at. He's saying that it's okay to lose that peripheral learning, but students must retain core learning. That is the task of educators to ensure that.
Pretty interesting point. So if I understood you correctly, are you also saying just me going to class or just me sitting on my table under the lamp is not necessarily studying? Not all studying is learning. Are you trying to differentiate that?
Yeah, absolutely true, Prakhar. So there are certain things in our teaching learning process which we learn mechanically. There's a portion called mechanical learning. When your teacher is taking a class on a virtual medium, or when students are just taking notes in a class or answering textbook questions, the engagement level is not very focused and not very clear, as opposed to real learning where a child applies the learning in a real life situation or connects the learning with the what is happening around him, what he sees everywhere. And that is what enables students to perform well in independent tests like JEE or PISA, right? We'll talk about this going further. I think we can help parents understand this little better. But the point to remember here is that learning is not, it's not a place. So it is not a place to reach, neither is it the place where you're doing something or an activity. It is a final outcome. It is a result of all activities that a student or a learner undertakes or undergoes to get a final understanding of the concepts. So let us look at learning as an outcome rather than a place or an activity.
Very
Does that
interesting
make it a
point.
little better, Prakhar?
Yes. In fact, it hit me somewhere when you say learning is an outcome. And it's not only here, but if you ask me, as my journey working with schools and working with children, I have realized that a lot of transition across the globe has happened to derive back home this point that learning is an outcome. In fact, I've seen the landscape of assessment changing over the
Now,
years.
but before we move there, I would really like to ask our parents another question. You know,
Okay.
how do they understand whether how much their child is learning? How do they measure it? What is the measure for them to understand their child's learning? Parents, we are launching the second poll. Please answer on the poll. How do you assess or how do you measure how your child is learning?
I see interesting responses coming up.
Yeah,
We'll
we're
wait for
getting
another
very
10 seconds.
yeah, we're getting varied responses, but I think we're a little skewed onto ideas also, right? Okay.
5 seconds and we end this poll.
Right.
And
Right. So it is quite clear more than 50% of our audience believe that tests and assessments help us understand how much my child is learning. Pretty obvious and quite traditionally what we have been doing, right? But like you said, there has been a change in the landscape. Can
yeah.
you explain this a little better?
So I'm based out of Chandigarh, Sudeshna. So one thing which anybody in Chandigarh is talking about right now is something called PISA, which is coming up in 2021. In fact, PISA has been, people have been talking about PISA, which stands for Program for International Student Assessments. It's an international assessment which is being taken, it's a benchmarking test, which is where a lot of countries participate in the test, specifically OECD countries. Last time India participated and we came second last in that assessment. And that's a different debate. We came 73rd out of 74 countries, just before Kyrgyzstan. And that's a different debate. Why, what happened, was it correct? But one thing is clear, it's an important assessment that helps us understand how we are doing. And thankfully, India has again agreed to participate about PISA in 2021. All the schools across the country have been talking about board specific changes.
So we are preparing for PISA in some way then, right?
Yes, we have been also training teachers in PISA type of questions. And I think if you lift any magazine, newspaper, articles, in fact, most of the debates are happening around new education policy, which is now in front of us. And that has also been talking on similar line, just like you spoke about outcomes. In fact, interestingly, new education policy 2020 is emphasizing school examinations in grade 3, 5, and 8. And they are focusing on basic learning outcomes, core concepts, and knowledge from national and local curricula. Something which interests me is that thankfully they are saying there is less emphasis on input and more on the desired learning outcomes. So inputs are important, but what is important is my child learning? Did I actually learn? Instead of only focusing on, I studied for 8 hours. I went to ABC college. I went to XYZ school. But how do you measure what I learned, what I understood? And I think these are few changes which have been my observation, which are perhaps in very much in line with what is your thought.
Right. So can I show you some example of these learning outcomes, the desired learning outcomes that we're talking about through some questions again?
That
So
will be very helpful. Please.
Yeah, I'll take up a question. I'll take up a question from a textbook. We're not debating whether it's a good question or a bad question or what kind of the quality of the question, but these are typical textbook questions. To all the children who are there on this call, I'm sure all of you will be able to answer this, right? Which hand of the clock moves fastest? Is it the hour hand, the second hand, minute hand, or is it something that you cannot determine?
Are we asking children to respond to this question in chat box?
Yes, we can ask them.
Okay.
get some responses on chat box. Do we have some responses, Prakhar?
Yes, I've started getting a few. Let's
Right.
see how many more come. Okay.
So for these children, I'm sure most of them would have been answering correctly, right?
Yes, most of them said second. Option
Okay.
B.
So I'll just pose a little different kind of a question to them through a poll. So children, please answer the question that is coming up on your screen on the poll. Prakhar will launch a poll again, and I request the children to answer this. They reached the zoo at 2:45 p.m. Which of the following clocks show the time as 2:45? I'm sure you can see it on your screen. And I request the students to answer this. Right. Is it taking some time to think, look?
20 seconds more.
No, I'm just thinking whether children are taking time to understand the visual. What is it? Do you think it's a
And actually
guidance
need
question?
to know, yeah, how to read a
And our
clock.
children today are very, very, I think, used to digital clocks, not the analog clock, right? But it definitely makes sense to have an analog clock. Right. So so do we have a few responses on chat as well? I think. Right,
Yes.
Prakhar, we
Yes.
end the poll. And what do you see as the response? Are more children towards the correct answer, or do we have
60% of them say option A, around 20% say option C, and then there is 10% distribution between option B and D.
Okay, so B and D also look like the same kind, right? So I'll share interesting data for everyone. You know, we had asked this question to, about 21,000 students, and 46% of those students, like you said, there were around 20% who answered option B, right? So we have a similar data where 13% got the correct answer. And what grade level do you think would this go for, Prakhar? We asked this at grade 3.
Oh, and this is 21,644 students.
Yes, yes. This is actual data that came from our assessments, you know, and that shows that there is some requirement of understanding questions that are a little different, not direct. Okay, maybe if children are asked to draw a 2:45 p.m. clock, they would be able to, but when you show them certain similar looking clocks, they get confused, right? I'll come to another question. The movement of Earth and Sun once every 365 and 1/4 days is called, we all know it, right? Do we know what is it called? Children, can you answer on chat? Is it rotation or is it revolution? You can write on chat. I can see
Shweta raised her hand. Shweta, you can just respond on the chat box.
Yes. Okay. Prakhar, do we have answers for this?
Yes.
And correct answers?
Most of them are calling it revolution. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I'll give them another question that is based on the same concept. Okay. And you can launch the poll for that. What causes the moon to rise and set? Prakhar, you can launch the poll.
I am just launching, and here we go.
Yes.
1, 2, and 3.
So what causes the moon to rise and set? The earth rotating on its axis, the moon rotating on its axis, the moon moving around the earth, or the earth moving around the moon? Please respond to the poll. For this, please do not respond on chat. You can put your responses on the poll.
I see very interesting responses coming
Yeah,
up.
there's a clear divide kind of looks like. Okay.
But these questions make a very strong statement. It actually tells I have to actually know the whole process and dynamics of the thing to answer
It's
these.
absolutely, if you are understanding the concept clearly, the central idea of the whole concept, you would be able to answer these questions, right? They are not from rote memory in any way. You would need to
Yeah,
learn with
we cannot
understanding.
answer this with rote. Another 5 seconds, Sudeshna, and we stop this poll.
Sure, sure.
5. And if I
So
may share the results,
what is the majority?
these are the results.
Oh,
There's a tie between option A and option C. Interesting.
oh. So can we see what happened when we gave this question to students across the country? A very similar situation, skewed on option A and C, right? But option A is the correct answer. We know it, that the Earth's rotation causes us to see the rising and setting of the moon. Again, we have a data for more than 22,000 students, and 57%, that is more than half of that population, thought that the moon moving around the, just give me a second, yeah. And it is at a grade 6 level that children have this, if I may introduce this term, misconception, which means that they have an idea different from the actual idea. They have an understanding which is quite different from the correct understanding. That is when we say it's a misconception, right? I'll move to
actually, I know, Sudeshna, what you mean, what you meant when you said, all studying is not necessarily learning.
Right, absolutely. I'll come to the last question. Yeah.
Sure.
This is a question from maths, a very common topic for area and perimeter across grades. So this is from a textbook. Work out the area and the perimeter for the following shapes by finding the missing sides. The shapes are not to scale. Now there is a lot of calculation and application of learned formula to be applied here, right? Can we just have maybe around 10, 20 seconds to have response on chat for this? Is there some children who would like to respond, even if you can just solve one of them?
I think this will need some 15, 20 seconds for kids to calculate.
Right, absolutely. Because this is area and perimeter. Let us talk of perimeter only maybe. Children, you can just, I think we are getting some responses on chat. Okay. So once you get some responses, let me know. I'll give a poll question for children to answer now. Something similar on this concept. And let's see how this question can be different. Right. Can I launch the poll now, Prakhar?
Yes. Would you like to show the question?
Children answer. Yes, I will. Children answer this question coming up on your screen. This is the question. A square is cut into two identical rectangles as shown below. If the perimeter of each rectangle is 24 centimeter, what is the perimeter of the square? So what is the perimeter of the square from which this rectangle has been cut? Prakhar, you can launch the poll, I think.
Okay, so here we go.
Right. Let's see what our children are saying. a square into two identical rectangles. If the perimeter of each rectangle is 24 centimeter, what is the perimeter of the square? Can we have y'all answering on the poll and not on the chat, please? Okay. Again, we see a clear divide, Prakhar, between two.
Very interesting. I think another 5 seconds before we close this. I am also getting a lot of responses on
Yes.
chat.
Yes. So let me know what is the majority saying. By the way, what grade level do you think this question is suited?
Grade 7, 8.
Okay. Yeah, because they are quite into the concept of area and perimeter in 7 and 8, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
area and perimeter.
Yes. So this is what our poll says. Viewers can see it. What do you think is the correct answer, but let me show you what happened when we gave this question to almost 10,000 students nationally. 21% of students nationally had been able to answer this correctly, which is 32 centimeter. And 54%, which was here around some 60%, Prakhar, in our poll, chose option C, right? And believe me, we asked this question to grade 9s.
Oh.
So they have been through, you were talking of grade 7 and 8, right? So they have been through the rigor of textbook questions, application questions, maybe some reference book questions, tests, assessments to go through this concept. But this is what our data said. So we understand that, yes, absolutely. That's
79% of the kids
79% who are not. Correct, absolutely. So you can see how questions can be differently created on the same concept, right? We can see how it can be a same concept, but we are putting the question in a different way, right? So that differentiates how an assessment can help a parent, a student, a teacher, anyone to understand what kind of learning is happening. So do you now have an idea, Prakhar, of how we can know whether...
Saying, if I may summarize, that for ascertaining that a child is actually learning, we need to have good assessments, which are regularly taking, and which give us constructive feedback, and there can be benchmarking to understand where I'm standing, how I'm performing.
Absolutely. A good assessment, which let me tell you what a good assessment would mean. I'm talking of taken regularly and getting a national benchmark. That means a comparison with their peers across. That is okay. But a good assessment will be having good questions which can cause learning in students. So if I have questions which are able to help me find out misconceptions, what I spoke about a little while ago, which mean that they can unearth or tell us, give us an idea of what is the correct idea and why is my child thinking differently and coming up with the wrong answer. That is what a misconception is, and tells me about specific learning gaps. What are the learning gaps? It would be able to give specific feedback for each child. And I'll tell you why I'm talking of the power of revisiting previous question papers, Prakhar. This looks like a little, I think, off the beaten track. Many parents, many teachers might not agree. But why are we going to revisit previous question papers? Now, I said that a good question does not just test a student or a learner. a good question can cause learning also, which means that when when you're putting a question in front of a child and letting him think, connect to concepts that he already knows, and coming up with the answer, he is constructing knowledge. He is creating his own knowledge from the knowledge base that he has, right? So that is able to re-attempting questions, re-attempting same um, assessments can give children a great opportunity to construct knowledge or construct learning. Does that make sense? Do you understand what we are
Yes.
trying to talk about?
If I am able to paraphrase whatever I've understood, Sudeshna, two vital points. Any studying is not necessarily learning. It has to be outcome driven. And outcome driven, when we say, we mean learning with understanding. And if we are trying to ascertain outcome driven learning, learning with understanding, we are looking for good assessments. And when I'm trying to define good assessments, I am saying there has to be no misconceptions. There has to
Yeah.
be specific learning gaps identified for me. There has to be specific feedback for each child, which cannot be different for, and it has to be actionable, like you rightly said. And we are also saying that there is a lot of power and strength in revisiting previous question papers.
Absolutely.
Revisiting can also induce learning. So you are saying assessment is not limited only to tests, but also they can accelerate learning.
Correct. Absolutely. And why do I have the confidence to say this? Why am I saying that this is like a proven thing? This is going to help us. I'm saying this because EI is India's leading student assessment experts. And we have been in this field for 20 years with 5 billion student responses coming in our way through the different assessments that we have conducted. It gives us deep insights into how students think and how students learn. That is the power that is backing me to be able to speak with such confidence about how good assessments can cause learning and cause understanding of what kind of learning is happening. EI has been globally acclaimed. EI has been conducting surveys, has been part of projects from Google. We have been featured on India Today. We have been featured on The Economist and a lot of places. So there is a certain conviction through which I am saying this, right? And that brings me to the asset super test, which is a weekly assessment, Prakhar, for understanding how well children are learning. You remember when we were in school, maybe we had these weekly assessments, right? When we would go to school and there were Mondays. Some schools had Mondays or Tuesdays. My school, I'm a proud Zavarian. I used to have Tuesdays as weekly test dates. They were quite grueling, but later we understood that they have actually made our path seamless to face the summative exams, to be able to get clarity on how well we understand certain concepts. So I would like to introduce Asset Super Test and how we register on Asset Super Test. Prakhar, I already know how to do it, but I would like you to go through this whole experience to see whether it's quite easy to do. I would say it's very easy. So I'll let you log in to Asset Super Test. This is the URL through which you will be able to log in. I'm stopping my screen share and I would request you.
Let me just try this out. Yeah.
Yes. So it would be great if you are able to share screen and show whether you are able, whether this is like quite easy to do.
This is the asset supertest.ei-india.com. This is where I go. I get a login. I already got a login username and password. I think people can register and get access to this.
So for just a second, okay. For the new people, you will get the new user. Click on the new user to get, right? You've already registered, Prakhar, right? Great, that's lovely.
Yes. And so I am just trying to navigate. I have option of subjects, English, mathematics, science. That's comprehensive. Interestingly, I have dates. I have topic names.
Yes.
And I have my class, which I chose when I was starting. This gave,
Right.
oh, this is pretty comprehensive. Is this
So
mapped to my curriculum, Sudeshna?
yes, so if you go to your home page, you will be able to, when you're logging in, right, when you're registering, you will get the option of the class and the board, ICSE or CBSE. State boards can register to CBSE, which is NCRT curriculum, and you will be able to choose your class and your desired curriculum when you are logging in or registering, right? And it gives you the understanding of, so this is your profile, right? Yes. So
My
you
parents
have
will also
got,
get to know what I'm doing as a child.
yeah, so this is grade 4 and a CBSE curriculum that you have chosen. And just stay on this page for a second. When you are creating your user name, when you're getting your registration done, it will ask you to create a parent pin so that your parent knows what test is coming up. And if your parent wants to reschedule a test, supposing this week you have a maths test and the parent wants you to take up an English test because in school you have an English test coming up for a revision, you want to take an English test, your parent can reschedule your test from maths to English, right?
That's interesting.
Right, absolutely.
It's pretty. Can I also use an Access Asset Super Test on my desktop and my mobile and my tablets?
Everywhere. You can access your asset super test on any device, and you will be
This is
able
something
to
called
see.
past test, Sudeshna. Can you help me understand this?
Yes, for all the tests that you have done, your report will be showing there on the, so the report is not here because the test has happened on 29th August, right? Today, it's live.
Yes.
So what happens, I'll just tell you in a nutshell. You'll register for a particular pack of tests for particular grade and curriculum. And every weekend, Friday or to Sunday, a test opens up for you. So when the test opens up, you have the comfort of answering it from your house, home, and at your desired time, your convenient time, between Friday to Sunday. So the test window is between Friday and Sunday. Once the test window is over, reports are generated on Monday because that gives us the time to create the benchmarking, create the absolute report, everything for the child.
It
Right?
sounds very promising, Sudeshna. So are you saying I may study from Monday to Thursday across my classroom, any online platform, any way?
Yes.
And on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I get to check whatever I've studied, have I understood it or not? And my
Absolutely.
parents get to see the report. Is there an outcome of whatever there has been input? It could be a
Correct.
tuition teacher, an online class, any platform, any YouTube channel, XYZ. Oh, this is
Anything.
interesting.
This
This is like
this
a
is
litmus test.
Yes, absolutely. So you have the complete list of upcoming tests on your screen the moment you register. So it becomes very easy for you to align yourself to what kind of curriculum flow you are following and take up those tests at some time, and they are grade appropriate. See, that gives you the complete understanding of what test has. Oh, wow, you got a test live.
And the
Yes,
moment
please.
I click on it, this
Yes.
is what the screen looks out to be.
Yes. So it will show you the question and you're still loading the page. So it will show you the question and
Yes.
yes. This for grade 4, right?
This
The
is grade
distance.
4.
Yes.
And this is matter being tested.
Yes. So just try and answer this question and then we can help our parents understand how they can register and if we have something in our kitty for them?
I already like this question. It says the distance between particles in solid it's the least. So it is telling me, it is not expecting me to memorize and come something. And then it is testing me after informing this statement that it increases when solid gets converted into liquid and gas. It is then showing me, so there is already some information. The interesting part of this question is, unlike a lot of other questions, Sudeshna, which I've seen, it tests my memory. It tells me what is the important component of this concept, and it is trying to see if I've understood and able to apply it or not.
When this will happen. So the question is saying that something was done to the substance because of which its particles went from figure 1 to looking like figure 2. What was done? Whether it was heated, cooled, pressed, broken. So you said heated. So you can go on to the next questions like this. You can revise your answers. You can do all of it and finally submit your test.
And I have a timer also.
Yes, because you have a total of 40 minutes to answer around 20 to 25 questions, per test.
I think this is pretty easy to navigate.
Right. Thank you so much. So I will just bring you back. So I think all our parents have seen how this works, and I would request them to just find out for themselves, experience it. But what is interesting is, Prakhar, there are rewards that are attached to this. For a child who completes all tests in a month, the child gets e-certificates, which is a certificate of achievement for a particular month. There are monthly rewards. But that is for the student once they register. Do we have something for our parents who are here today?
Yes. And this is what I've got something from EIA today as an organization.
Right.
For all the participants of the webinar, and vis-a-vis the regular pricing, I think there is a flat discount where we have offer price of 383 and 3,315 rupees for 4 and 52 tests respectively.
So Prakhar, I'll tell you how this works. Once parents are, once they click on this Asset SUPERTEST registration link, and once they proceed to payment, they have to just put in this coupon code, WEBSCP20. This coupon code is valid till the 4th of September. And the moment they put in this coupon code, they get a discount over these normal prices, for whichever pack they're going in for, they will get a discount, right? Okay. So I'll just summarize what we were talking about all this while, We are talking about Asset SUPERTEST as a 40-minute weekly test for a particular grade and curriculum, ICC or CBSE. Students can take the test over the weekend between Friday to Sunday from the comfort of their home. There will be instant reports at the end of the test window, which means on Monday. The test window closes on Sunday, so on Monday they have the reports. There will be e-certificates with marks, and parents will get reports of the absolute score and the benchmarking score and get to know where their children actually stand with respect to learning. A lot of learning is happening, but maybe we need to measure for understanding and clarity on concepts. That is why we introduced this assessment, which has learning with flexibility and without the pressure of an exam situation being taken at a particular venue, at a particular time, and being very stressed out for all of that. They have the comfort of their home. They have the time span in which, a duration in which they can take. It is available for English, Maths, and Science. They will have a total of 20 to 25 questions per test, and there is a time of 40 minutes, right? All of them are multiple choice questions, because multiple choice questions give us the chance to actually specifically target misconceptions and understand whether a child has a different understanding of the concept beyond what is correct. It is taken online from any of the devices that you mentioned. Mobiles, on iPads, on tabs, on desktops, on anything, right?
Thank you so much, Sureshna. This was indeed helpful. What I liked is, I think we spoke about what is important and we tried to answer during our interaction, what is the most pertinent part when I am trying to understand, is my child actually learning? And you also gave a solution how to do this. I think this is helpful because it's a very logical way of looking at things. If I've studied, I am assuming that I've understood. Here is a way to test whether I've understood or not. It comes with very constructive feedback. In fact, what I know about Asset Super Test is that I can go back, look at each question how I have answered, and I can reappear in those questions, and I get to know whether I am going to class studying, am I actually learning?
And I'll also repeat and focus on this particular point that I earlier spoke about, that reattempting a test actually brings in deeper learning for students, right? And that is why between Monday to Thursday, when the normal test window is closed, a child can reattempt the previous tests that he has already appeared for, So there is the regular practice, the rigor, all that happening during the entire week. And during the weekend, they can take a new test.
So are you saying this is all calendarized? This is part of my schedule. It is spaced.
Yes, it's spaced.
It is not something which I want to do and I'll do. It's something like, it's a schedule which makes my calendar very regulated.
Yes, and I'll tell you, supposing you have already given a test, appeared for a test today, right? From Monday onwards, you can reattempt it, right? A previous test. And every time you reattempt, your progress, your marks, your score get recorded. So as a parent, I am able to track your progress every time that you are attempting that same question. If you are continuously doing it incorrectly, I know there is a deep problem in understanding the concept. If you are doing it sometimes correct, sometimes incorrect, then also I know that you do not have a clarity on the concept. You're just guessing each time, right? So the progress is also recorded in the system for the parent to understand how the child is moving ahead.
Thank you once again, Sudeshna. I like to thank all the parents, all my young friends, all my dear educators who were with us today. Any question regarding assessments, regarding learning with understanding, or specifically Asset Super Test, you can write it down to us on sudeshna.rai@eiindia.com, or you can post it on the chat right now.
Yes,
you can
we'll
also
answer a
message
few
it on
questions
the
right here, Prakhar. We'll answer a few questions here. Right. Let's see if we have questions. Please feel free to put your questions here. Or you can write to us on this mail ID or WhatsApp or call on this number on the screen. If you have any questions immediately, you can ask us. Else we will also be available to answer your questions later, maybe once you experience.
I see one question, Sudeshna. I think
Sorry.
Mr. Saurabh is asking, send this question. He is asking how multiple choice question helps us to ascertain that a child has understood. Right. Why use multiple choice?
Right. So I'll tell you why we are using multiple choice questions to ascertain whether my child has understood well or not. In a multiple choice question, there is the scope of testing a variety of understanding through the different options that we use. Now, in our lingo, in our terminology, we call these options not just random options, but as distractors, which mean that they are very close to the correct answer. And only because if a child does not have absolute zero in clarity on that particular concept, he will choose a different answer from the correct answer. And we can ascertain how he has reached that particular answer. Every option has a definite reason or a rationale why a child will choose that option. So it gives the educator or the parents, everyone, a very clear idea of why a child is choosing that option. What is the learning gap? Where does he need help in understanding the concept? That's why multiple choice questions.
I think I see a question from Miss Nibrati, who is saying, can we see a mathematics test? Yes, ma'am. So I'll ask somebody from my team to connect with you and share a few mathematics questions. Thank you.
Right. Once you register, ma'am, you also have a demo test available to give you an insight of the system, but you'll not get a question paper per se, but it's a demo understanding of how the system works.
And I see a question from Miss Komadi, who is asking, till when is the coupon code valid? Ma'am, this is valid till 4th of September.
Right. We have opened it today and it will be valid till the 4th of September to help you avail the discount.
Once again, thank you all the parents. Thank you, friends. Thank you, Sudeshna, for joining us. Please be
My
safe.
pleasure, Prakhar.
Be together, be with your family, and ensure that we get to meet soon and we continue to ensure that learning never stops. Thank you, everyone.
Please feel free to write to us on the email ID and the phone number. Thank you so much.
We'll sign off in a minute, Sudeshna.
Yes, sure. We can.
Bye.